you just learned it by doing it. There was no like instructional course that you followed or individual that you were like, this is what I need to do. I'm gonna do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess so. It doesn't seem like a great plan. Now that I'm a parent, I'm like, that didn't seem like a great plan. What kind of plan is that? You know,
you learned on the fly. So what kind of tunes were these singers doing? Was it like anything? It was like standards to pop tunes to whatever. You just had to come up with accompaniment.
Exactly. Yeah. And also the so if I did like little duo things, then that was good. But the only way you could really make money on the street is if you had a group of at least 3 or 4 people and you had vocal harmonies. Because if you didn't have vocal harmonies, that's one thing people stop. If you have dance moves, more people stop. Yeah, I learned a lot about what works and what doesn't work. Of course, I don't do any of that because I don't want to do it. So obviously, like I was saying, like I've been doing this thing with this great singer, Lucy Woodward, and touring a lot. And it's just a whole other universe from instrumental music. It's like when you play instrumental music, even if it's accessible instrumental music, it's like looking for an apartment in New York City with 3 dogs. It's like 1 out of 100 apartments you can see. When you get a singer, it's like everyone is like, oh, here's the keys to my apartment. Stay as long as you want, Exactly. It's that kind of
Isn't that funny?
Yeah. But I want to ask you, man, because your style to me is I think so much about what we do and what connects all guitar people really is the vernacular of guitar playing. I feel like we learn that first, and then we go back and learn whatever theoretical stuff we need to learn, et cetera, et cetera. But I hear the same thing in your playing. I hear the vernacular, all those playings. And that's what's beautiful about what you do is you have all of those elements, a lot like Danny Gatton had some of those elements and put them together, but I feel like you have so many more elements and you put them together into this great style that's your own.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Coming from you, that is a weighty compliment, my friend.
Get the out of here. Get the out of here.
But as Junior Brown said, I'm just doing what comes easy to a fool.
I'm a fan of his, man.
Oh, he's fantastic. Well, theory-wise, it was interesting. I did go to school for music, but it's because, my dad was a lawyer, and all my other siblings did. Not all of them. I think one of them didn't go to college. Maybe 2 of them didn't go to college, but for the most part, they all went. Did straight things. They they went to school, got a job, yada, yada, yada. My mom played piano and she was, she played by ear. She played great. But the idea of me becoming a musician was horrifying to my dad. And I've told this story many times, but he talked to every teacher I ever had and said, for the love of God, will you tell him not to do this for a living? And I was like, Dad, you're insulting the people you're trying to get. And so he wanted me to go to school for music, and he wanted me to go to someplace that was accredited because at the time I was infatuated with all things Texas. So I graduated at 84. So at that time, Stevie Ray Vaughan had just come out, and the Fabulous Thunderbirds were big, and of course I was a huge ZZ Top fan. Not to mention, Albert Collins and T-Bone Walker and Freddie King and all these other Texas folk. And I just wanted to go to Texas. Plus the food. I was like, hey, let's go to Texas.
Oh, I feel you.
And at one point, Herb Ellis had a guitar conservatory in San Antonio, which sounded like the coolest place ever, but it was not accredited. And I got all the, I sent away for the paperwork and whatnot. And my parents were like, absolutely not. You're not going to Texas. So I ended up going to this school in central Wisconsin. it was a University of Wisconsin, Stevens Point. They had a jazz guitar degree, but, I just wanted to know how to, play over changes and be able to read and write music. But fortunately for me, the guy that ran the department for a few years there, most of the years that I was there, was a guitar player who was not one of these guys like, you got to play an ES 175 with flat wire strings into a polytone amp. He's like, no, I think what you do is cool, but you could add X, Y, and Z. So that was a good thing for me in terms of being able to, but at that time I'd already kind of developed this kind of bluesy country thing. And I was able to then kind of figure out after the fact what the hell it was I was doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
And a lot of those things I learned back then, I'm still learning about today. I was like, oh, that's right. I remember they showed me back that in college. But really, I majored in beer.
Got you.
And I excelled in the fermented arts. I got to tell you, there was a period there where I showed great aplomb, but that was I quit all that stuff years ago. I quit like when Dylan was like 6 months years old, or six months years old.
Yeah,
left over from the wet brain. But I quit it all and thought, you know what? Either I'm going to perish in flames or choose another way. So that's what happened at that point. But
I'm right with you on that, man.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a story, man. Bobby Previtt, who's kind of like one of my teachers, I played in a bunch of his bands, and brilliant drummer and composer. He had this group called Bump the Renaissance with Steve Swallow, Curtis Folks, Marty Ehrlich, and Wayne Horvis. Great tunes and, the jazzy side of what Previtt does. And we were on this tour doing all of those jazz things in Europe, all the same like little jazz, like community jazz organizations who have like a series, and the people come out and they're always so well attired and, pretty cool. But they expect a certain thing from him. And he had this band called Coalition of the Willing, which was just like, Barney. It was some of the loudest I've ever played. But it was kind of like a Roadhouse rock band, but with minimalist composition. So you had to really be careful. It was really easy to the songs up. You had to read the whole, and I'm a reader. You still had to have the chart because it was so complex in its simplicity. If you missed that quarter note that was now like moved an eighth note in 32 bars down, the whole thing is shot, But anyway, this music was super loud. We were playing this gig. It was in Sicily, I remember. And this beautifully attired older couple, they're probably in their 70s. They come back, and the Italian guy goes up to Bobby, and he goes, Bobby, why? Why?
That was just a shot in an arm, isn't it? After you get done performing this music, and why?
That was the mantra for the rest of the tour. Bobby, why, Bobby? It's so good, man. Oh my God. Oh. Ridiculous.
The great struggle, as I like to refer to it.
Right.
Paulie Brown, we're going, right? You got all that? All right, good. Paulie Brown in the house. So let's talk about your, so you're over in Europe. You come back to the U.S. of A, and you start your own trio right away. What was you're like, I'm going to do my own thing. I've had it with accompanying people. I'm going to do my thing. Freak flag fly.
Yeah. The sad, tattered remains of a freak flag. Sir, your freak flag is Sir, your freak flag is not up to code. The people in the neighborhood are getting very upset about this.
Exactly.
I'm going to call freak flag Karen down here to have a word with you.
Exactly. Here comes Karen.
No, I ended up back in Berkeley in like end of '89, and and then I just really wanted to work on playing. I got a job moving used office furniture. I worked at a used office furniture warehouse, which was in itself a thing. I have accreditation in scraping boogers, 30 years of accumulated boogers off the bottoms of desks. Yes.
Oh,
it's a skill. It's a skill I have. I'll teach you the dark arts.
Sounds
someday.
like a potential food source.
Yeah. It I'm gonna puke because you had
solved it.
You solved it. Oh my God. Soylent Green is boogers.
Soylent Green is snot. Yes.
No, but I was back there. I got that job teaching at Subway Guitars, and then I just started playing little gigs around the Bay Area. And this guy Michael Franti, he worked at Subway Guitars, and he goes, "Hey man, I have a band," because he's a great lyricist and a rapper. He had this band called Disposable Heroes of Hypocrisy, and he's like, "Do you want to be in my band? We got a record contract with Island Records," and I didn't know what any of this meant. I was just like, okay, but I didn't own an amplifier because all I had was a mouse amplifier, and I said, okay, but I make $400 a week at the furniture place. He goes, okay, we'll pay you $500 a week. But that ended up being like a 2-year gig, and it was a real interesting learning thing because he kind of grew and grew. We started off touring with groups like Arrested Development and Billy Bragg, and we did all these gigs with all these big hip hop groups, and then we got picked up by U2. We were on the Zoo TV tour opening for U2. But really, I just wanted to play, and they were brilliant performers, but not really musicians. You know what I mean? And I was at that point, I was like 22, 23. I was just like, I want to be the next Joe Pass. I need to practice more, et cetera, et cetera. And, but it just wasn't what I wanted to do. So when that tour was over, I kind of left the band and went back to moving furniture, But then I made my own group with a great tenor player, Dave Ellis, who I grew up with, and Jay Lane, incredible Bay Area drummer. It was at a time in the Bay Area when, like the early 90s, people our age with our same means were opening up clubs in San Francisco. Imagine that.
That's
it was
affordable,
and it was a beautiful scene because we had everybody there. It was everybody from every part of town, and everyone from every part of town played with each other, and it was a beautiful scene. And man, honestly, it was really the best thing that could have happened to me because, you could practice and you could play like casuals, you can do this, but when you're kind of playing your own music and even or hard like jazz music or whatever it is, and you're doing that like 5-6 nights a week, that's how you together.
Indeed.
Right? That's how, and so we were able to do that, and that was a total mitzvah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Bring out the mitzvah wagon for that. That was a totally cool thing. So man, we had 2 years of that, and we were doing well in the Bay Area. Like I was too ignorant to even like have a bank account or a credit card. I just had a drawer with cash in it. You know what I mean? And
sweet.
It's odd to think that there was a time where people like us would be able to stay in our city and make a better living than we could going on the road.
That's crazy.